Well, hello! Welcome to Cat Girl Film Podcast. I'm Mr. Gurl. I'm here with my friend, Mr. Cat, co-host.
How am I a co-host? Oh wait, yeah, that's right. That's my idea. Yes, I am the cat.
I mean, I'll be the host if you want. You'd be a special guest.
Oh, but well, man, am I the one supposed to be editing all this stuff here?
I mean, yeah, the editor could be the special guest. You can be the special guest.
He is the special guest, everybody. I am the main host.
Yeah.
I am the main host of this podcast.
I'm the special guest for every episode.
Imagine bringing in, what are we going to call him? We'll call him the Frog. Who knows? Maybe
Mr. Frog.
Mr. Frog. Maybe, shoot, now we have to make a t-shirt with a big giant frog on it or something like that.
I think we're a little far out from making merch. Yeah.
No, that's not merch. It's just a special t-shirt.
Just for us?
No, just for us. No way. I will buy a t-shirt of nothing but Garfield images somewhere. Unless it's just one giant image of Garfield's head smoking a pipe. Now that's my merch. But anyway, yes, welcome to this film podcast.
Yes.
In which it is obviously the first episode.
Obviously
the first episode. We are obviously not remaking this 5 months in the future again.
Yeah, so a little bit of preamble about what this is. This is going to be a Cat Girl Film Podcast. We talk about films we like. There's a ton of things out there talking about bad movies. And there's a lot of really good movies out there.
Yes. We're looking at certain people who only want to talk about bad movies, apparently. Can we just be positive just for once? In which, yes, we are going to be nothing short of a positive film podcast. Maybe every once in a while we'll talk about a movie that maybe wasn't as good. But
yeah, that's inevitable.
But we are not going to be the over-the-top standard movie reviewers that you will see at a... I don't know, just our standard YouTube movie channel, like, I don't know, just name, honestly, they don't need my publicity, y'all know who I'm talking about.
In which case, this will also be a good source for anyone who is wanting movie recommendations. Some of these movies are going to be fairly obvious. I will be shocked if you haven't seen them, but there's people out there who've seen like 3 movies in their lives, so, in which case, I don't know why you're watching this,
But if you just want to enjoy listening to friends talking about movies for how many hours this could take.
In which case, for this episode, 1 year ago now,
yeah,
1 year ago, we decided to get together and make top 20 for each of us. So you made a top 20, and I made a top 20 movies of all time.
Yep.
Our opinions have since changed, because it has been a year.
Yes. And there has been new good movies coming out.
Yes, because every year has great movies. I don't feel like people talk about those enough. Like, for example, one movie I've been really wanting to watch is Everything Everywhere All at Once. I've heard about that, and I was like, oh my god, I need to see that.
Okay, I know for a fact, I told you about this, and I thought Bryce would really enjoy this movie, and yeah, I definitely will.
I saw a little bit of it, and I was like, oh my god, I need to see this movie. This looks amazing.
Literally, I will try to find a way to schedule and watch this movie with you, because it is really that good. Yeah. However, yeah, that is just a testament to good movies come out every year.
That came out like this month.
No, it came out like last month or something.
Oh yeah, last month. Okay.
Somebody.
Obviously, because it was the start of a month.
Yes, but hey, it's a testament to how many good movies there are out there.
Yes.
You just got to go and look and see. You don't always have to look in the mainstream bubble sometimes.
There are some mainstream bubble stuff that we do have here. So
that is very much true, but always search out independent works, because good lord, they need the money. And who knows? They might be your favorite director for the next day or so.
Yes, absolutely. Note there are some movies here that are big stream stuff. We're also going to try to keep stuff non-spoilerly for this episode, because these are ultimately a recommendation episode, basically.
Yes.
These are the movies that last year we were like, this is some of the best movies of all time. I will try to highlight some special ones, because I feel there's movies on these lists that are need to see. We did this during an older recording of this, where we have movies where I want to tag movies that are need to see for audiences, because there's movies that we recommend, and then there's movies that are need to see.
Yeah, a lot of these movies, like you said, these are probably some movies that you might have seen on syndication, whether it be television or your just standard streaming service like Netflix, Hulu, and etc.
Some of these you might just heard of.
Yeah. Or hell, you probably just seen these off of random memes at 3 a.m. on Instagram or Facebook. On Instagram or Facebook. So please get some rest.
And some of these movies, everyone and their mother has seen.
Most likely, yeah. Especially whenever you get to nearly the top, then you start to see, at least on Bryce's end, they're like, yeah, these are movies that we probably have seen before, or at least heard of for one reason or another. However, we will try to spend about 2 minutes talking about these movies in a non-spoiler faction. Good Lord, I hope to God we can keep that up.
Yep, in which case I'm also going to be timing these so that way we can keep them short, non-spoilerly, and keep them moving. So if the 2 minutes that we pitch for these, or whatever time we wind up settling on, you were like, oh, I wanted to hear them talk about this some more, go and watch the movie that means. Because that means just our small discussion probably interested you.
Yep. And also, if you are still wanting to know more information but don't want to see the movie yet, we will have a full-on spoiler review in which we would talk about it for a few more minutes, but good Lord, it would, like, some of these movies we could talk about for hours.
Yes, there's one particular movie we talked about for several hours. We'll talk about that when we get to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. However, we could spend more time on that on the actual
in which case,
spoilers.
If at any point we're just like, oh, we wanted to get a whole episode to one of these movies, we might just do that.
Honestly, I would not mind that at all. But we do have other planned out episodes for the future.
Yes.
In which, you will see in due time. However, our top 20.
Yes. In which case, I'm going to go ahead and start. Alphabetical start. Me, then you. Me, then you.
Alright, so I guess me first?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I thought you said me first. I was like, okay. Alright, so first movie, Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, released in 2005.
I believe Ackman, if I remember correctly.
That's right. It's an Aardman movie.
Aardman, that's it.
Yeah. In collaboration with DreamWorks. So this movie is literally stop motion. So big ups for that. I always appreciate stop motion movies immensely. And this is definitely one of the funnier.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely one of the funniest stop motion movies out there. Not the funniest I've ever seen because I've seen a few new ones in the past few months. But if you want a standard one that'll be a lot of fun for you, and it was just some fun characters like Wallace and Gromit, they're probably the most iconic British related animated duo of all time. They're like up there with Tom and Jerry and.
That's fair. I can see it. British duo, yeah. I'm trying to. There's probably some other British duos.
Yeah, they're
animated.
Well, I mean, but I've had this animated duos. There's you always see Tom and Jerry and all these other ones.
Yes.
These are the ones that I can always think of almost immediately when it turns to usually movies and stuff like that. And most of their short movies, you really should also see the short movies as well. They're very, very short.
Yes. If I remember correctly, their first one was Go to the Moon or whatever it was.
I thought the first one was about the wrong trousers and it was a penguin controlling a robot.
Oh, I don't think that was the first. I think the first one was the moon one.
I don't remember.
Because
it's been a long time.
There was something about Wensleydale or whatever the F about that.
Oh, yeah.
Something about that. I don't remember the whole story, but I remember that.
Alright, we have about 30 more seconds.
Yeah, in which case,
what else
if you want, I would highly recommend this movie. This is one of those that is, if you're looking for a good family picture, I would say set this down. This is a perfect childhood movie, I would say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would highly recommend this as well. It was a movie that I used to watch a ton when I was a kid, and I would definitely recommend it. It is something that, you'll probably never get bored of it. And, it's just fun. It's really, like I say, it's fun. Alright, so the next one is Bryce's. It's a very standard one. It is Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, the very first one. Too.
Yes, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Alright, so how would you try to pitch this movie to somebody?
This is the most necessary adventure film of all time, I would say. If you're looking for an adventure movie and you haven't seen Raiders, this is the top, not top of the pyramid, but the base of the bedrock for adventure, I would say. This is modern day adventure. Raiders of the Lost Ark probably established that.
Yeah.
This is one of those movies. The whole series, I don't know if I'd recommend the whole thing. There's only really 2 movies I'd probably recommend from the Indiana Jones stuff.
I can probably see which one it is.
And
I know everybody doesn't like the middle one, but I haven't seen them in a long time. But I remember thinking, it's not the best, but it's not the worst.
I really did not like Temple of Doom. I really didn't like it. I thought it was really bad, personally.
Meanwhile, you like the last one because it's got Sean Connery.
Not just because of that. I think it's really good, but Sean Connery is definitely up.
I was going to say, on face value, you have to admit, most people would probably think that.
Okay, so you know what people typically say about Tim Curry? Every single movie that Tim Curry's in goes automatically up by a star. That's Sean Connery for me.
Probably, yeah. But anyway, is there any more else that you want to say about Raiders of the Lost Ark?
This is just one of those movies. It's one of the most iconic movies of all time. Not only in music, costume design, just him running away from a boulder is by far probably one of the most shared movie moments in history.
Yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, there's a reason why it's this iconic. it defined a generation. It had people going for archaeology majors go up significantly for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason why people love this movie so much.
Yeah. I've thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It's not definitely going to be ever in my top 20, but I always respect the movie. Especially, this is one of the first movies for Steven Spielberg to really get on the map.
Yep.
But, yeah, good movie. Go check it out. 2 minutes are up. Alright, so the next one, it's finally really early on, but it's our first Kubrick movie, Clockwork Orange. Okay, so where do we start with this? So there is a few things that you should understand about.
Yes.
A lot of sexual violence.
A lot.
And a lot
multiple rape scenes.
Multiple rape scenes, yes. However, I would always try to say it's not that I'm always interested in. I'm very interested in how the movie looked. Kubrick has a way on filming his movies that I really do enjoy. However, there is one movie that Bryce will definitely say no to immediately, and which I can understand, I guess. But for Kubrick's style of shot composition and filmmaking, I love how Clockwork Orange is usually made. It is very, very interesting to me.
Yes, I would agree. It's very rare for me to slander Kubrick as a cinematographer. I feel he does a good job for that. I just have problems with how this movie portrays itself, I guess.
Yeah.
Because this movie is... There's movies out there that are difficult to watch. We're going to get to a few of those that are just... They're so hard just because of emotional standards. This is just so hard to watch because it is very, very unobscured, blatant rape occurring in this movie that is just like, I am uncomfortable continuing to watch this as a human being. Not by me as a person being like, okay, this is like emotional wreckage for me. No, this is like, as a human being, I cannot stand watching another human being have this occur to them.
Yes. We should probably try to wrap this up some more.
Yeah.
Like, that is the main thing that you don't understand about. However, I enjoyed this movie for other reasons for that. However, I can understand why some people are not able to get by with that.
Yeah.
I personally think that the look and the sound of this movie is top-notch. Anything else you want to add to, Bryce?
Yeah, if you're looking for a good-looking movie, this absolutely does it. Just go in knowing that this is not a nice movie.
No, it ain't. All right, so the 2 minutes are way over.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not 7 seconds. Come on.
That is true. But I'm just trying to think like, okay, well, hang on. You're not the one that's going to be editing all this.
That's
but
right.
Anyway, so let's move on. So yes, so this next movie, Throne of Blood.
Yes.
Well,
our first foreign film. Well, I guess you could probably count England as a foreign film.
Let's be honest. Like, usually whenever people say foreign
language film.
Foreign language. There we go. So yeah, Throne of Blood. Bryce was pretty excited to show this movie for me.
I was very excited to show it to you
because there's a very specific thing that I love about certain things. One of which is Shakespeare.
Yes.
And this one is more of a Japanese adaptation or a spin on the classic story of Macbeth.
Yes. Someone pitched. So this is how I not began to love this movie, but here's how I first discovered it and started watching it. Someone pitched this movie to me as this is a post-imperial Japanese take on a pre-imperial Japanese standard, like pre-Japanese time period, of a Victorian or was it Elizabethan writer depicting a king period of England.
You lost me already, but
it
doesn't.
A chain of a chain of a chain of a chain. It is insanity.
Well, either way, there's so much to appreciate about Throne of Blood. However, ever since that movie, I have checked out the director's other works.
Yes, the director is sparkling.
Yes, isn't it? All right. So Akira Kurosawa, the director. Holy smokes, is his filmography some of the most interesting pieces of filmmaking I've ever seen. I don't know how much in terms of, like, say, the movie fan sphere goes towards. I know, like, say, a casual audience, they won't know who he is, but I am dying for the day in which his work is more and more appreciated, because, good lord, there's so much in there. And we have other movies planned of Akira Kurosawa.
Yes.
We're probably going to have ourselves a giant retrospective dedicated to this guy.
In which case, my biggest take I would say on this is someone in their life should at least watch one of his movies. It doesn't have to be Throne of Blood, but should watch at least one of his movies.
Oh, yeah. So without a doubt, yes. check this movie out.
Yes.
It's actually really well done. Heck, it's probably a small spoiler, but good lord, the arrow shots in this movie, it's going to be funny.
Yes.
We'll talk more about it in
This is my personal favorite of his. I would highly recommend it, but I would just say watch any of his.
Yes. Alright. 20 seconds over. It's fine. Yeah. Alright. And again, another Kubrick movie. Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is my personal favorite of his. This is on your list, but it's my personal favorite of his.
Yes.
Because not only does he keep the looking stuff good, but all he has to do here is write jokes, and he writes it very well.
Yeah, he actually writes comedy a lot better than a lot of other people. Heck, he also does. It's really like, even though it's still comedy, it's like satire. Though.
Yeah.
It's poking fun at a bunch of stereotypes of Cold War stuff, so like generals, leaders, and diplomats and all this other stuff. It does it very, very well. And a lot of people from within the CIA that saw this movie at the time, they said this was like a documentary. Like, this is pretty spot on. So it's like, it's just a testament on how one Kubrick's know-how and how to translate that into a satirical set piece.
Yes.
Really just shows a lot of his talents.
This movie made me want Kubrick to write more comedies and satire stuff, because he did it so well.
Shoot, what was the next movie that he did after this? I believe it was Lolita.
Ah.
I don't think it was, probably, but I just knew, like, good lord, that was... I don't know if you know anything about Lolita, but... Maybe someday we'll talk about it, but there's no way in hell I'm ever going to recommend it. But anyway, yeah. So, Dr. Strangelove, good lord, there's a lot of funny scenes. It's pretty much like a weird, like, there's multiple different stories happening in between. Like, you have one where it's inside of the war room, and then you have another one that is over at a base, and then over at the plane. You just have a bunch of different characters, but it's pretty much shot in a way that, like, you didn't understand, like, what's all happening and goings on and stuff.
How I would pitch this movie to someone who's like, should I watch this movie? I would pitch this as, this is like a time capsule of a political cartoon.
That makes the most amount of sense, actually.
Like, this is a political cartoon that someone has dredged up and hauled to modern day, and they went, wow. It is very hilarious, and you're getting to see these bites on things that were so long past. This is like, wow, this is ridiculous.
Yep. Alright, yeah. I probably would say the same thing as well. That works well. Alright, so our next one. Our oldest movie on the list.
Yes.
Invisible Man.
The original, 1933.
Oh yeah, this is very far back. Almost 100 years old.
Yes.
We are approaching its 90th anniversary.
Yeah, we're on the 89th.
Yeah, we're on the 89th.
89 years.
One more year and it'll be 90 years, and oh boy. Alright, so there's really not that much I would personally say
I have a lot
about
to say
the
about
movie, but I'll let Bryce take it over.
So first off, the special effects are absolutely superb in here. If you're someone who absolutely loves special effects in movies, this is probably one of the first movies that got out of the silent era with new groundbreaking special effects. Because in the silent era, you saw all sorts of movies breaking special effects. This is probably one of the first ones to really break the field of special effects that outside the silent era. And they do this by having a man become invisible, and you have to have all sorts of tricks while doing this. And in addition to this, I feel the story is very well contained and not self-referencing, but I actually really appreciate the intelligence of the characters in this movie, because they're attempting to catch an invisible man, and so many of the characters are very intelligent about, like, okay, how do we do this? And they'll pitch ideas. They will shoot down their own ideas before even attempting to do it, being like, oh, this won't work for this reasons, we'll do this, won't work for these reasons. These are actually intelligent characters, it feels like, in a real situation. So I love, despite how goofy this movie can be at sometimes, because this was made in the 30s, there are some campy things in there, it's kind of inevitable. But the movie does such a good job of being able to ground itself despite that, I feel. There are a couple of smaller things that I do have misappreciation with this movie. There's one character I really don't like, but they're only there for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's also a very short watch.
Yeah.
Very short. It's the shortest movie on this list.
Oh yeah, it's just literally over an hour. You could probably get this done in like just one sitting, and you'll be just out and done. It's like, oh, that's it?
Yep. It is a breeze to go by. The special effects are absolutely superb for the time period, like the 1930s. Like we just said, like almost 100 years ago. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that's Invisible Man. I don't really have much to say, but like Bryce pretty much said it better than any way I ever could. Alright, so, next one. Alright, so this was the movie that we were mentioning earlier that took us the longest to talk about. 12 Angry Men. There's a lot that you could talk about.
I believe our discussion was 4 hours.
I believe I thought it was like 3 hours, a little over 2 hours. I don't remember for sure.
I remember being 4 hours.
I don't remember for sure, but I was.
It was multiple hours.
I just knew
this movie alone.
I just knew like this one was the big one that, like, you could literally talk about this movie for a large amount of hours.
So earlier in today's episode, I mentioned movies that everyone should see. This is the first one.
Yeah, I can see that.
This is the first one. This is not the original. This is the 1950s, I believe it was.
Yeah, this was the one with Peter Fonda
yes. in it. This movie has been remade a whole bunch. There was original before this. There was a TV program, if I remember correctly, or something like that.
Yeah, this whole thing has been adapted through multiple things. This was originally a play. It was just a bunch of different things. However, this is the one that we always talk about the most. It's number 5 on IMDb. A lot of people love this movie. It is very much beloved by a lot of film circles.
Probably, this is one of the movies I actually want to talk about the least, just simply because if you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Yeah, the less that's said about the movie, the better. It'll definitely enhance the viewing experience. And then it's just like, all you have to know is that there's been a murder, and 12 men have to decide whether this boy that has been framed for it is guilty or innocent.
Yeah. In which case, I guess this needs like very basic understanding of the U.S. justice system. Yeah. In which case, there's a jury, death sentence. Jury decides if this person takes the death sentence or if they're go free.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep. And there's a lot of interesting perspective into it. And it's like, if you do want to understand a little bit of like how this whole thing works and like how a jury does their thing, this is a good way to understand it. But like, there's even some more subtle commentary on the overall justice system of the U.S. on how maybe it is just a little bit flawed. I mean, like today, shoot, there's a lot of stuff in this that still speaks volumes to this very day. And we're still talking about, 70 years after this movie originally came out. But
if you haven't seen 12 Angry Men, go watch it. We're going to probably talk ad nauseum about this next episode.
Oh my goodness, yeah. That's probably going to be the big one. Like, I'm literally going to tell you, don't have a timer on this. Let's just talk about this one for a while. Alright, so, next one is our first musical, and I unfortunately did not ever bother to rewatch this again. But, yeah. Little Shop of Horrors.
I absolutely love this movie.
Yeah, I know, Bryce.
This is the one with Rick Moranis.
Yes, it is. And he's apparently coming back for more acting roles, apparently.
Rick Moranis is hilarious.
Well, shit, the last time he was in a movie was back in the 2000s.
Yeah.
I believe 2006, with a Disney animated sequel that was direct-to-video.
Amazing. But yeah, Rick Moranis is hilarious. Yeah. This movie is, it has absolutely superb music. It's a musical. If you're someone who loves musicals, I would not only highly recommend this, but this movie has a surprising amount of genres. Because it's a musical, comedy, horror, science fiction.
Yeah, that's pretty much about right.
There's so much happening in this movie. And on top of that, the puppeteering in this movie, top notch.
Oh yeah, if I had to say anything about the movie, it would be like the puppeteering work is phenomenal. Yeah. What really for me is like, I didn't know this was a musical going in. I had to be in a certain mood to watch a musical, and that's probably why I didn't enjoy it as much. Maybe someday I would go back into it and try to get in the mood, but Lord have mercy. But there are some songs I will admit that are pretty catchy.
Yes. There's several songs in this movie that I quote all the time. Yeah. One of my favorites. I'll say that for the spoiler thing, actually.
All right. So yeah. Little Shop of Horrors. Just go check it out if you want a fun, silly musical. It's definitely up there. Alright, so the next one is our first, believe, other animated one. Our first computer-generated one. Pixar's Ratatouille.
Yes.
Alright, so I do appreciate this movie a whole lot. I know you don't nearly as much.
Yeah,
However, I appreciate this movie for like subtle reasons. It's like, I love the music. I enjoy a lot of the different ways that the direction went with it. I just found the movie to be a pleasant delight. And like, I could tell like everybody that worked on the movie tried to put their heart and soul into it. I believe this was like around the time when I thought Pixar's movies were at its peak. And yeah, I really enjoy Ratatouille for what it tried to strive for, and I think it accomplished it pretty well. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10, of course, but I still think it's a superb 8 out of 10 for me.
I think the movie's fine. I am definitely not as high as you are. If I had to give it a number, I'd probably about 7. There's a really good stuff in this movie, but I feel that this was one of those movies that I feel really shows from the suffering of Disney execs wanting to step in and, like, we need to get this movie, quote, done. That we, like, there's multiple things where I feel like shortcuts were taken. For example, I feel the blocking in this movie is not great. Characters kind of teleport quite often. And because of that, it can wind up being very...
confusing.
Yeah, you're just not sure where someone is at a time, where they'll just wind up bending a scene just so someone can get out of a situation where it's like, that doesn't make sense. I feel the movie, yes, it had a lot of great potential. There's elements that are in there are great, but I feel that the movie was ultimately felt very rushed, and this is where the classic quote of, people will always remember, if your movie it comes out late, people will not remember in 100 years, but if your movie is great, people will remember in 100 years.
I'm not sure, because, like, a lot of people that I was known about, like, they love the movie to death. Like, there's certain...
Yeah, but I also feel a lot of people watch this during childhood and have that going in.
Yeah.
But, like, a lot of nostalgia surrounds this movie, I feel.
There is probably some... I mean, that's probably with a lot of animated movies.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's like, shoot, you can probably say the same thing with, like, nearly any Pixar movie, but there's always something that I think... There's something about a Pixar movie that makes somebody like to say, oh yeah, I love this scene for this, and this.
Oh, yeah, there's great scenes in there, but I feel there's also multiple... As a whole, this falls apart.
Alright.
Like, there's scenes that are great, but as the ultimate whole, there are scenes that fall, and there are scenes that are great. Hence why I feel it's rushed. Because it feels like this movie could have been ultimately lifted up if it was given more time to, pardon the pun, bake.
Maybe we'll talk more about it some other time.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, our next movie... Alright, our next movie is The Fugitive.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I rewatched this last night.
Really?
Preparing for this.
Huh. Okay. So what do you gotta say?
It's great. You're an idiot.
Oh, please. I'm not the biggest idiot in the world. I had Troy Wigerman in my top 20.
Yeah.
And a few other movies from your top 20 that were going to possibly be there. But I stole it. I'm the genius in this. I'm the maker of this shit.
This is an absolutely great action flick. This has not only very great stakes, this has great cohesion between scene to scene. This has very smart actual story where there's actual very subtle things that are happening, leading from scene to scene, leading to the end, quote, twist, kind of. It's not really a twist.
I don't know. Most twists don't do much for me at all. Like every.
That's what I'm saying. It's not really a twist.
I mean, like even still, like, if we're gonna call it a twist, it's like, are we really gonna call some of these things a twist? Because like every movie seems like almost today want to be having a twist. I mean, I'm looking at you, M. Night Shyamalan.
But yeah, also just the way this movie was made is an absolute miracle. It has amazing special effects, probably the best stunt scene in all time. Like, if you go watch the movie, curious like, oh, what's the best stunt scene of all time? It's pretty early in the film, I think first third. So if you're just there for the stunt scene, probably can wind up looking it up if you just care about that. But it is probably, in my opinion, one of the best stunt scenes of all time. I think this is an absolutely great movie of, it's not like, if you're looking for like the most high stakes action film, this is pretty stepped back, but I think it is absolutely superb, and the way this movie was made, because I don't know if you know how this movie was made.
I mean, I know some of these were actually practical effects, and they did full...
No, I'm talking about how this movie got written. It's based off a book. Well, based off a TV show, based off a book, based off a true story. Amazing series of events again.
Funny.
Sorry, based off the son of the person's a recollection of the true story.
So hearsay.
For the most part, is what the guy ultimately told his son, so...
Okay, then. Well,
it's very interesting. This movie has so many things scrapped together because of it.
Alright, then. Well, I don't really have too much to say. I don't really know. I feel just, I guess, indifferent to it.
I think it's absolutely superb. I don't see why on earth you're indifferent to this movie.
I don't know. Maybe it's just how I am. Anyway, next movie, I guess. Good lord, we're over 2 minutes already.
Oh, yes. Well, this is one I knew we were going to get heated about, so...
Yeah. Alright, so the next one. Finally, I have my own musical on here. Singin' in the Rain.
Yes.
A Gene Kelly movie.
Yes.
Alright. I like a lot of the music in this movie.
Yes.
Some of the characters are fun.
Yes.
Pretty much it. That's usually how I see a musical for me. If I've ever judged a musical, it's like, is the music good? Yeah. Is it got some fun characters? Yeah. Is that it? Yeah, probably it.
So I really like this movie. There's only one notable problem that I really have with it. In which case, there are a couple of songs that just felt like they were thrown in without care. Like, they just kind of stopped a movie to be like, we want this song in. Where are we going to put it? Well, we can just put this scene on hold to put this song in. That happens a couple of times. It's not, like, awful for a movie to do that. I just personally don't like it.
Sometimes whenever you do stuff like that, if you just want to have the character give, like, say, more characterization, there is nothing wrong with that.
Oh, 100%. That's the best way to do one of the songs is for a character to say, like, to be able to vocalize their emotions at that time, because that can lead to a great emotional song. At this time, there are songs where we spin off to a person who's not in the movie to sing a song that's not related to the movie. That happens a couple of times, but if you're just here for great music, that's not going to be a problem for you. Not even remotely. Because these are great songs. The only problem is if you're someone here for a story, the movie will kind of sidetrack itself quite often to get to those good songs.
Way too often like that.
Yeah.
Alright, yeah. Let's Singin' in the Rain. It's probably Gene Kelly's most famous movie. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's been pretty much referenced all over the place. You've probably
you've probably heard about Singin' in the Rain.
You probably heard the song Singin' in the Rain. You probably have heard other songs as well. We're not going to mention them because that's probably technically spoiler stuff. We'll probably mention it in the next episode, but...
Yeah.
Alright, so, next one. This is a very special movie for Bryce, though. It's the movie that got him into movies. The Martian.
Yes.
The other musical.
Technically a musical. By genre, it's not actually a musical. If you're going to this movie looking for a musical, it's just a movie with great music.
Oh, yeah.
Like, background music even. They don't even... No one sings a song. I guess technically the lead actor will sing along with a song, but, like, it's not really.
I mean, he's just... Like, good lord, like, what would it be? A jukebox musical?
Yeah.
He's singing a song that's what?
Imagine Guardians of the Galaxy.
There we go.
That's what's going on here.
Well, shoot, which one came out first? Martian or Guardians of the Galaxy?
I believe they came out around the same time this year. Same year. Like, they were around the same time period, I believe.
I don't remember. I just remember it was like sophomore year in high school when I knew somebody that was reading the book and somebody asked me if he was going to go see the movie.
Yeah, like, I believe Guardians of the Galaxy and The Martian came out, if not, like, the same year, then similar years.
Yeah.
Like, they came out around the same time period.
So, shoot, that entire year was all about space or something like that.
Yeah, it was.
I think that movie, Gravity, starring Sandra Bullock, where...
Oh, that came out many years before.
I have no idea.
That came out...
I could not.
That came out, like...
I could not care.
A decade before.
No, it did not come out a decade
It came out a lot. Well, it came out, like...
We'll find out later. But look, yeah, The Martian, it's got a lot of... I would say this, like, I really enjoy a lot of the scenery of Mars. It is very interesting. And I like a lot of the tech that they used. And I especially enjoy the scenes just with Matt Damon trying to survive. That's probably like my favorite parts of the movie. Everything else is usually just either good or I don't know why, I kind of tune my brain out, even though it's important for the story.
Yeah. So
I just enjoy Matt Damon doing Matt Damon things, I guess.
So what I particularly enjoy about the movie is, one, it is extremely smart because this is actual, like, not actual people from NASA, but, like, these are, you believe these are NASA people. And two, this movie is extremely realistic. Matter of fact, they, for one of the scenes, one of the authors, like, really beat himself up over, like, them discovering something about Mars later, and him being like, no, that ruins a plot point! No, it's like something very tiny! Because apparently they found something about, like, there's some microbe or whatever the F in Martian soil, and they were losing their mind, being like, no, that ruins a plot point! Because the person who, like, wrote the original book really cared about getting every single possible detail about this movie correct. And it just goes to show, like, how intelligent and methodical this movie was made. Because the person who ultimately wrote the book did have a big hand on this movie being made.
Yeah.
So, like, this movie is extremely smart. If you love realistic science fiction, this is, like, one of, like, the most realistic science fictions I have seen.
I can see that. And we are running over
over
our time, in which we probably need to really move on. But yeah, just take that as you will. Anyway, next up is a very fond movie for me. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, even though it doesn't even bother focusing on Willy Wonka, it focuses on our titular character, Charlie. Now,
this is one of those movies that nearly everyone has a kiss scene.
I mean, everybody, I'm sure, has already seen him. Good lord, it's very iconic.
This is the one with Gene Wilder, by the way.
Yes, this is the one with Gene Wilder. I'm not a very big fan of the Tim Burton one.
I hate the Tim Burton one.
I met somebody pretty recently that said they love the Tim Burton one, and they said they would fight anybody over it. And I thought, okay, but it's still not going to change my mind. I vastly prefer Gene Wilder's performance because I think it's more nuanced in how he does it. It's more methodical, and it always keeps you guessing. And then there's also the kid actors, and they are pretty solid.
This is some of the best kid acting of, like, the time period. Like,
yeah.
This is up there, like, with, like, the Goonies and stuff, of the best child acting out there.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff in this movie, and heck, this movie is honestly really interesting to me, because, like, this was directed by a guy that didn't actually do regular movies to begin with. He was a documentary director, and this movie does feel like a weird way of a documentary. I mean, whenever you see certain scenes in this movie that you'll probably start to notice when we were focusing on like the chocolate bars and the golden tickets, when people are just like looking for the golden tickets, it actually looks like it's a documentary being shot. And that entire sequence, honestly, is probably the funniest thing in the movie to me, is like this guy trying to find out certain things, like where is the ticket at. We'll talk more about it in the spoiler section, but I want to focus on at least like Gene Wilder is great, kid acting is great, Grandpa Joe can suck a dick.
One thing I do also want to say, if you haven't seen this movie as a kid, this is a movie that you actually shouldn't just immediately play off. This is a good movie even as an adult.
Oh yeah.
This is very funny, and you're probably miss some stuff as a kid because there's some surprisingly complex jokes in here. Not like dirty jokes, just complex jokes.
Oh yeah, there's like actual adult jokes that are like pretty articulate, and it's like you just put two and two together, and you're like, oh, that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
And it's not even have to be like some stupid dirty joke that you would see in Shrek for the 13th time. But yeah, go check out Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's great. All right, next one. Here's finally a great horror comedy. Evil Dead 2, everybody.
We're not going to talk long about this movie. It is effing hilarious.
Yes, literally, the first Evil Dead, it is an actual horror movie. The second one, it is just off the balls, batshit crazy. You really should go check this movie out.
It is a hilarious movie. In my opinion, it is one of the funniest movies of all time.
I wouldn't go that far, but I would definitely say it is one of the funniest horror movies.
Oh, yes. In my opinion, it is the funniest horror film of all time, easily.
I can see that.
But yeah, I highly recommend this movie. It's made by Sam Raimi. If you have wound up seeing anything from the original, like the original two Spider-Man, from the one with
Tobey
Maguire, same director.
Yep. What are some other movies? He just recently did Doctor Strange.
Oh, yeah?
He did Drag Me to Hell. He's done a bunch of different weird movies.
And this is not one of his first, but like up there being like one of his movies that really, really got him on the map.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
This is one of his particular styles, and it's effing hilarious, in my opinion.
Heck, the entire decade of the 2000s, it was probably like the main directors that I can think of that defined that era of movies. Peter Jackson and Sam Raimi, and I think a few other ones, but they got their start by making horror movies.
Oh, another thing, also, yes, it's a sequel. Do not have to watch the first one.
No, you really don't.
You do not. They capped the first one in 5 minutes.
Yep, literally, it does not even matter. In which, yeah.
Also, another thing, even if you have seen this movie, I was considering putting this on instead. Evil Dead 2, director's commentary.
Oh, yeah.
It is hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
If you have seen Evil Dead 2, watch director's commentary, it's even more funny.
It's honestly really enjoying to listen to Sam Raimi and the main lead actor, Bruce Campbell, talk, because those two seem like the best of friends.
It's hilarious. I recommend, go watch it if you just want a funny horror film.
Yeah. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Alright, so our next animated movie, weirdly enough, it's my list that has most of the animated movies on there.
I don't think I have any on my list, do I?
I don't think you do. I haven't seen a single one here at all, so go watch an animated movie, you bastard.
I do watch animated movies.
Yeah, but you don't have any on your top 20. Anyway, look, we're going to Japan again. We're in Akira.
Yes.
Alright, so this is probably, in my opinion, one of the best 2D animated. I'm not talking about the story. We'll get to that.
Yes, the animation is phenomenal.
It is like they had so much money in the budget just for the animation alone, and you will never see a 2D animated movie that has been poured so much money into it. Like, heck, the companies I can think of right off the top of my head was like Bandai Namco, the people that made Pac-Man. and shoot, I think Toyota. There's so many different companies that poured money into this movie, and it's like, shoot, let's just put it in the animation department, let them have fun. And there's like, if you watch the behind the scenes movie of it, there's like a scene where they're just showing off like a character like getting a whole bunch of metal being assembled together, and you'll see every little bolt and just nut being screwed in. It's just insane.
Yeah, the animation for this movie is probably the best of all time. So if you love amazing animation, this is probably already going to make your list by default. Like,
oh yeah,
one of the best animated movies of all time by animation standards. I do have one small problem with this, though. It would have been significantly better as like a TV show or something, because the story is way too compacted that they cut way too much material.
Yes.
Because you can look through this and you'll be like, why did X person do X thing? They look like a moron. And it's like, oh, because of X reason. It's like, we didn't see that. It's like, oh, because it got cut for time.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, they are going to be animating this to a TV show.
Which, yeah, I'm sure that'll be great.
Yeah. However, there is one thing I will find interesting about the movie is that they had the original person that wrote the story be the director, but I could tell like the story was not done by the time this movie came out. And I even looked it up earlier that, the comic wasn't even finished by the time the movie was in finished up production. So the story wasn't ready, and I'm willing to bet the director was like, let me see if this ending would work best. Yeah. And if he probably thought, nah, probably not. So he just written it in a draft. But I have never read the original comic. Will I ever go and read it? Maybe one of these days, but I don't read comics that often. However, Akira, just for its animation alone, if you're an animation student, definitely study the hell out of this movie.
This will be a great study for you, but like, if you're wanting a movie with a great story, probably don't go here. But if you're looking for a movie with great animation, definitely.
I would wait to see if there's anything that follows up on it being a TV show, because I'm willing to bet if they go the whole 100% like adapting the original story, it's probably going to be fantastic. Yeah. There is glimmers of an actual good story. It's just
I can see that.
It needs to just flesh it out some more.
Yeah, it needed some time to bake.
All right. So yeah, we're almost over that.
Yeah.
All right. So our next one is another big Hollywood blockbuster that almost anybody and their grandma has seen. It's Back to the Future, everybody.
Yeah, Back to the Future. It's considered probably the best time traveling movie of all time.
Shoot, that's actually saying a lot, because you got another time travel one technically in the future.
That's not.
But to be
that's
fair,
not time travel.
But it's still time related, and that's still in the space of time travel. But
in science fiction time travel.
Fine, let's go with that. Fine, let's go with that. Back to the Future. So there's so many fun things to talk about this one. This movie's referenced so many different times. It's got iconic characters. I mean, Doc and Marty are like probably the most iconic duo in a movie franchise of all time.
Yeah. Of movies that I would say surprisingly influential on pop culture, I would probably put this on the top pick. Like, surprisingly influential, because we see things like Rick and Morty inspired by this heavily. And that's already like probably of modern day one of the most quoted like TV shows that's actively premiering.
Oh yeah. I'm not really what else to say about this movie. Like, if there's anything I could say about this movie, it's probably been said like 30,000 times.
Yeah, this is one of those great movies. If you're just looking for a classic, like, science fiction, pop culture, like, defining movie, this is probably it. Like,
oh yeah.
This isn't like a need to watch by most people, but if you're someone who loves pop culture, this is.
Oh yeah. So yeah. That's all I have to say, really. Like, I have much to say. Like, I don't want to get much into it, because if I do, it's going to be into spoiler stuff. But the chemistry between our two male leads are just outstanding.
Yes.
Super, super good. But yeah, Back to the Future. Go check it out. Next one is one of the more recent movies, oddly enough, even though I've apparently been called a hipster.
You are.
In some ways, yes, but not always.
I mean, you are.
No. Anyway, Blade Runner 2049. So this is the sequel from 2017, I believe, that was made. And yes, I love this movie to death. I do like the original a lot as well.
I prefer the original still.
I know people will prefer the original, however...
But that shouldn't be a slander against this. This is still effing fantastic. That we can have this discussion not be heated. That if you see the original Blade Runner, I can unheatedly say I can understand you liking this movie more.
Yeah.
This is surprisingly up there with the original Blade Runner. And yeah, I would personally highly recommend the original Blade Runner. It's one of the most defining science fiction movies of all time. It almost completely set the standard for the 90s science fiction standard. And yeah, and I'm saying that this movie is up there.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Like
good lord. Like, for me, with Blade Runner, is like this. The director loved the original Blade Runner, and he added in a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't even world-breaking. That is incredibly hard to do.
Yep.
And it's just like, wow, he did it. And now this director has also done Dune, the massive-ass novel from the 60s. I've heard a lot of good things about it. Yeah, I think it's pretty solid, but it has a few issues that I have to it. If we ever put it in the future episode list, I'll talk more about it at that time, but I will recommend this director a whole lot. He's got a pretty solid filmography so far. And I believe he really first started around in 2015, so yeah, he's going to be around here for a while.
The only thing I have to specially note is this movie is surprisingly long, because it's surprisingly longer than the original.
Yeah, it's really longer, but the pacing is still fantastic.
Yes, I just have to note this for someone who's like doesn't want to watch long movies. This is longer than the original. Just a special note about that.
Yeah. However, I didn't feel the runtime.
Yeah, I didn't feel it either, but some people, that does need to be noted.
Yeah. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Alright, so this movie we've seen a whole bunch of times together, and we reference this movie quite a lot. Even though it's not in my top 20, I still I still understand why lots of people love this movie. It's The Princess Bride.
This is, in my opinion, probably I'm trying to think if I can say this correctly, probably my favorite fantasy movie of all time.
I can see that.
This is, not only is it effing hilarious, this is one of those movies, if you are looking for movies to show your kid, immediate recommendation. Yeah. Immediate. This is such a great movie for just childhood. Yeah. I didn't watch this as a child, which made me really sad, but this is one of those movies that you should show your child.
Yeah. This movie is highly quoted, like I said before. Me and Bryce reference this movie so many different times. And it has a bunch of fun actors that I really love. I love Carrie Elways. What was the little short man's name? I forgot.
Oh, from My Dinner with Andre, what's his name?
Yeah, it's the one that says inconceivable.
All I can remember is Wally, because that's his name in My Dinner with Andre, but I don't know
whatever his name is, I'm sorry, but look. But this movie has so many quotable one-liners.
His also name's Vicini in the movie.
Yeah, Vicini. But there's just so many iconic one-liners as well. But other actors that I know of, Andre the Giant, the professional wrestler from the time period, he's in this movie. I love Andre the Giant, not even just as an actor, but as a wrestler.
All of the actors from this movie say that they met him because he did pass away not too far after this movie, about a couple of years later. Yeah. And every single actor to this day, like whenever they do reunion stuff, always talks about how they wish Andre was there and he was one of the sweetest people they have ever met.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of appreciation for Andre, and a lot of people adore him to this very day. Me and Bryce are wrestling fans, so that's a spoiler for a future thing that we have going soon. However, yes, Princess Bride, definitely check this movie out. Yep. It's beloved. It's probably the definitive cult classic movie out there. Alright, finally, we are getting into Wes Anderson, because we're going to the Grand Budapest Hotel. Alright, so, weirdly enough, this is actually the movie that everybody, whoever says they love Wes Anderson, they say, oh, you're a hipster. So, Bryce, you're a hipster too now, so... Anyway, no. Grand Budapest, this is probably Wes Anderson's more iconic movie, I would say, because this is like 2014, a lot of people saw this movie, and this was the big one that probably a lot of people love. I love a large amount of his movies. I love Fantastic Mr. Fox. I loved seeing his recent animated venture, Isle of Dogs. I haven't seen his newest one yet, but I have heard mixed opinions on it, but I haven't seen it yet.
So, how I would pitch this movie to someone is, if you feel you've seen a lot of movies, but you've just, seen them, maybe you're not someone who qualify yourself as a movie critic, you've just seen lots of movies, and you're like, I want to see something really good, and you've never seen Wes Anderson, watch this movie, you are doing a disservice to yourself. Because this movie will really get you to sit down, look at the movie, and be like, I understand why people want to be critics now. Because this movie really makes you understand what movies can do.
Yes.
This is so inspiring.
Not even is just how a movie can look and be. it's like how much the importance of a style of a director has on his projects. And it's like, this is like the definitive style of Wes Anderson. Like,
yes, and it does all of this without alienating a casual audience.
oh yeah.
And it's so great because of it. Because there's so many movies that I would say really inspire critics while alienating casual audiences. This can manage to inspire people while still remaining relevant to a casual audience.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
This is fantastic.
Yep. I have not much else to say.
Yeah.
There's a lot to love about this movie. We'll talk about it more sometime later. Alright, our next one. Another foreign movie, and this one is an interesting case for different reasons. We're going to have fun with Jackie Chan with Drunken Master 2, technically.
Legend of the Drunken Master.
Yeah, technically it's Drunken Master.
By the American release name.
By the American release name, it's Legend of the Drunken Master. However, in Hong Kong, it is Legend of the Drunken Master 2 or Drunken Master 2. Whatever it is, this is the one from the 90s, and holy free holy, we actually saw this
By the
movie
way,
pretty
another one of
recently.
those, technically a sequel, do not need to watch the first one.
No, you really don't. However, me and Bryce have actually seen this movie fairly recently
Yes.
because we were watching a very terrible horror movie.
Oh,
But
yeah, that's
we
right.
were waiting on a friend to hurry up and show up, and we decided to watch Drunken Master 2. And then right when the horror movie was finally over, we went back and watched Drunken Master 2 and finished it up.
Yep.
This movie, without a doubt, has some of the best choreographed fight sequences I have ever seen in a movie. Jackie Chan is fan-freaking-tastic.
Yes, so if you've ever heard of Jackie Chan, he's probably one of the best stuntmen ever. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he's surprisingly, this is high praise for him. In my opinion, he's up there with Buster Keaton in stunt work.
Mhm.
Like, which is high praise. That is enormous praise. He has absolutely amazing stunt work, and I would say this is his magnum opus.
I can see that.
He does absolutely fantastic stunts. The fight scenes in this movie are amazing, and there is some surprising commentary in this movie. Surprising!
Yeah, we'll get more into that in the spoiler
Yeah.
section, because I feel like I could just devote my entire time on this, but we'll try to go with the bare bones here.
Yeah, but we're just going to say how amazing this is now, so when you go watch the spoiler section, we can dedicate the entire time to how surprisingly deep this movie is.
Yeah. However, yes, Drunken Master 2. Great Jackie Chan work.
Absolutely.
Go with it, please.
If you want just a great thing to play in the background and you look over and go, holy crap, did he just do X thing? Then this is the movie for you, because this movie is filled with holy crap, he just did X thing, and that is amazing.
Yep. However, yeah. Drunken Master 2. Go check it out.
Yep.
Alright, so this next one, it is actually the most recently released movie on
our list.
On the overall list, yes. It is Robert Eggers' Lighthouse,
Yes.
starring Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, two actors that I am very high praise of. Yes, I really don't know really what else to say, because it's kind of hard for me to really describe this movie without
I'll try to.
spoiling it. But go ahead.
So this movie is very much designed by someone who loves history and wanted to design a historical piece as accurately as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie does a great job of doing it even down to the dialogue. In which case, if you're someone who is very much wanting to listen to this movie in the background, this is not for you, because you need to pay attention to this movie.
Yes.
The dialogue is... And also watch this with subtitles.
Yeah.
You need to watch this with subtitles.
Yes.
Because the dialogue is very hard to understand, because they are speaking in the correct language they be speaking for in their job and time period.
Yes.
And also about this movie is I am very particular about surrealism. This movie has a lot of surrealism in it. I actually do like the surrealism in this movie. I am very critical of it, though, because I feel not enough people are. And I also really enjoy surrealism. This movie, of horror films that use surrealism, I really like. But there are a couple times where it's like, but for the most part, I am the most critical of surrealism, so if I'm going away with it's probably going to be great for most people.
Yeah. Yep. There's a lot of detail in this movie that I really adore. I am a historian, and I do take great pride in making sure there is not even just like the accuracy of it, but the immersion factor of it. And there's a lot of immersiveness in this movie that I can tell Eggers did so much homework in.
Yes.
He has done other two movies as well. He's done The Witch, which is set in the New England time period, and then he did the most recent one known as The Northman, which is set in a Viking age. I haven't seen The Northman yet, but I have seen a few clips, and it's like, yep, he did his homework yet again. and which I've seen a couple times many years ago, and there's a lot of subtle text into it. Maybe I'll put it into a future list. However, it has its problems. I will fully understand it. It's got a lot of problems, but at least the homework there, it is there.
Yep.
So go check out the Lighthouse. It is
if you want an interesting surrealist film that is very history focused, this is probably it, because the history focus is probably going to be the thing that stands out the most, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. See. All right. Yeah, I got nothing else. All right. So next, we're finally getting on to, in our opinion, the best horror movie on our list. Just straight up horror. The Thing. Boy, oh boy.
It is absolutely phenomenal. If you want, in my opinion, so I am very also critical of horror films.
Yes.
And this is my highest placed horror film of all time. So, just to give you a reference to this, we were talking with a friend recently, and they went, okay, you two watch a lot of movies. What would you say, what horror movie would you guys say is the best? And unanimously, at the same time, we said, The Thing.
Yes. Now, hang on, we have to mention this one thing real fast.
Oh, yes, it's also the 80s one.
Yes, this is the 1980s ones, written by and directed by John Carpenter. There was an original one back in the 50s. We will talk about that in a future episode. And there was a remake / sequel in the 2000s.
Prequel or...
Well, I guess it's prequel technically, but I didn't enjoy it for many reasons, and it's super flawed. However, the original, I would say is by this point the original in the 1980s one.
Yeah, it's so different from the actual original at this point. So.
Yes. However, it is phenomenal. If somebody asked me like if they wanted to be a horror director, what would they need to study the most out of? I'd say The Thing easily. Yes. Like you could take so many pointers from The Thing, or even most of John Carpenter's horror filmography. There's gonna be something there, but if it's something just one movie, The Thing, that's easy.
On top of this, we have not mentioned this at all, and I want to get this to very quickly. Probably some of the best special effects of all time.
Yeah, practical special effects.
So much that the person who made this movie went to a hospital after making it.
Yeah. I've heard about that. I don't know how true it is.
It's true.
I've heard rumors that it was
possibly no one's report on why they went to the hospital. It's either that they, through mental degradation or exhaustion. We don't know which.
I have a feeling it might have been exhaustion.
Yeah, that's what I believe. But the tall tale of them going insane is kind of great. So
yeah, it's just a testament of how much of an imagination that, like, just overall special effects people will have just to making just practical horror effects. Yeah, it's just a testament of how pretty impressive some people can be.
Yeah, this is absolutely fantastic.
Yep, no issues with me. Like, this movie is downright perfect to the bone.
Yep.
I cannot nitpick about this at all. Alright, so this one is an interesting movie for us because it's a movie that is technically connected to it in a weird way. However, they're not connected through, like, say, story or anything. Mainly a director, but they're connected as well by their source material. Same author, which this is, you wouldn't know him as, like, making a movie, like, making a book like this, but that's besides the point. It's The Green Mile, starring Tom Hanks.
Yes.
And, what's his name? Duncan something.
It's Duncan something. If you said the last name, I could have told you Duncan. I remember it's Duncan.
I know, yeah. But either way, yeah. The Green Mile, it was written by one and only Stephen King. Very much a beloved horror author. However,
yes.
He has made other stories as well. This one is more of a supernatural oriented stuff.
Well, he does like supernatural stuff all the time. He just does that with horror. Yeah. And this time he takes his supernatural aspects and puts it in a non-horror film. Yeah,
but this one, like The Green Mile, it's really not a horror movie. And this other one that we'll talk about soon enough, it is also not really a horror movie.
Yeah.
However, with The Green Mile, I find this movie to be very much of an interesting movie for King, especially because, like, if you've read the original story and you've seen the movie, you would know that the overall theme is delving into something that King highly criticizes, in which I want to try to save it for the spoiler talk, but I know that's something that I guess we could mention a little bit, but I will try to just go by some of the basic stuff that I like about it. I love the characters, I love the sequence of events, I think overall this movie is pretty tight, even though it is a fairly long movie, and you probably will feel the runtime a little bit, but I think that the characters and the actors, or whatever you want to say, carries the movie along to the very, very end.
Yeah, in which case, two special pins in there. One, this has probably the most hateable villain of all time. The
Yeah.
villain is effing despisable.
Yeah.
And secondly, this movie is also very gruesome, so be warned about that. I don't think it's too bad, but also there's one particular scene, I'll get into this in spoilers, that I walked in when I was very young.
Yeah.
And every time I tell people about this, they go like, "Oh, so that was probably the worst possible time to walk in."
Yeah. Yeah, but the funny thing was, you said that you laughed at that scene, and well...
No, I laughed at a very different scene. You're misconstruing that with Up.
You're... Oh. yes, okay. Alright, so yeah, that's all we have to say about the Green Mile for right now. We'll talk more about it in spoiler stuff. So yeah, more plugins, shameless plugins. Alright, so next one. Finally, we got ourselves a Christmas movie. It's Die Hard.
Yeah.
Oh man, Die Hard. What do you say about Die Hard?
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic in my opinion. It is
Yeah.
probably the best action film of all time.
You can probably say that. I mean, heck, during the 1980s when this movie came out, you had three main muscular men that everybody knows of. I mean, you had Rambo.
Yes,
Stallone.
Schwarzenegger, and why'd you have to say three? Because now I'm thinking of a third one.
Bruce Willis.
Oh, well, Bruce Willis, this was like the one that really started his career on this.
It is, but however, most people remember, like, Die Hard turned into its own franchise.
Yes.
As well as, like, with, like, Terminator and Rambo. So, Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Sylvester Stallone. The three big three, as I like to call it. Three big muscly men carrying vast weapons.
Yeah, in this movie, this is, like, not that, though. Because Bruce Willis didn't become ripped until later in his career. He's like an average old dude in this movie. Because, like, he's beginning to, like, widow's peak a little bit. He has, like, a
Even still, it's like, I just know, like,
he's in good shape, but I wouldn't say, like, just got a Stallone or Schwarzenegger shape.
Still, though, like, there's still multiple Die Hard movies, though.
Yeah.
Like Die Hard 2 and...
But I only want to focus on the beginning one here.
Yeah.
In which case, this is, in my opinion, one of the tightest action films of all time. And it works so well. It's really hard to get a breath in this movie.
Yeah, it's just continuous action, beat for beat for beat. It does not want to hold back. And
this has, in my opinion, one of the best villains. Not the most hateable, one of the best villains of all time.
Oh, yeah.
In which case, yeah, such a great movie. If you're just wanting, like, peak action, this is it. This, in my opinion, is, like, top of the mountain action.
I have no much else to say.
And obviously,
means
not Christmas movies.
Yeah, that's right. However, I'm not the biggest fan of, like, most action movies. However, I will always say I have a special place for Die Hard. Is like, that's the one exception I can always make. I enjoy that movie for fun reasons. It's fun. Literally, fun. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Another movie that me and Bryce quote religiously at this point. It's basically our holy Bible at this point. Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Most people quote this. Like,
everybody quotes it, yes, but however,
if
there's two movies that we always quote. We quote Princess Bride and Holy Grail.
Yeah.
We quote it all the time.
In which case, if you are looking for the most quotable movie of all time and you want to, like, see, like, understand, like, man, people quote stuff all the time around me, but I don't watch movies. Watch this movie, you'll automatically get, like, 30% of them.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Like, this movie is probably the origin of so many movie quotes. It is the origin of so many. It is one of the most quotable movies, and on top of that, it is one of the funniest movies of all time. Matter of fact, let's say, aliens come to Earth, and they say, human, show us the funniest human movie of all time. I'd have to sit there and be like, okay, I'm speaking for the human race right now. I'm speaking for humans. What movie do I give them? I give them this one.
That could probably make a lot of sense.
Like, this is the movie I get them, because it's like, I am trying to find, in humanity, what is the best comedy of all time? I would pick this. Being like, okay, this is probably what humanity would vote as the funniest movie of all time.
That would be hard though.
Yeah, hence why I choose this.
Imagine if there was like an entire vote and whatnot, it actually all picked an Adam Sandler movie instead.
Well, the problem is it's probably going to be like some Chinese comedy or Indian comedy, just because they outpopulate like English speakers by a lot.
That is true. Yeah, we always have to keep that in mind. All right, but yeah. Holy Grail, I can honestly put any other Monty Python movie on here. Life of Brian, I have a great appreciation
Life of Brian is up there as well. I feel Life of Brian is not as well appreciated just because Holy Grail is... It's so effing hilarious, but Life of Brian is not that far behind in my opinion.
It
It's
really
like right on its tail.
It really isn't, no.
And so it's so underappreciated in my opinion, but this is about Holy Grail, so...
Yeah. However, yeah, Monty Python, there's a lot to love about Monty Python. They are probably one of the biggest pioneers of British comedy of all time.
Yes.
They are very influential. Heck, they're very influential on the both of us on how we
Probably the greatest comedy troupe of all time.
You can probably make that case. I can't think of any other ones that are just as iconic.
Depending on how you define it, the only one I could really argue is either Marx Brothers or maybe Three Stooges, but like those are like comedy trios.
Yeah, comedy trios or duos. Yeah, I would say like as an overall troupe, Monty Python's up there.
Yeah, because there's like 7 of them or whatever that. So.
Yep. Oh boy, and there's not that very many of them left, sadly.
Yeah.
All right, so next one is a epic movie. Our first
not the actual movie, the epic movie.
No, it's a massive, long movie that is literally split up into 2 parts. Didn't appreciate it at first, but I rewatched it again. Not very recently, but fairly recent after we were trying to get ready to record our stuff. Lawrence of Arabia. Oh boy.
This is I think it's the longest movie on our lists.
Potentially, yeah.
And in my opinion, it is worth the whole runtime.
Yes. I would honestly argue, like, whenever I said, like, I didn't appreciate the first time, when I rewatched it, I definitely appreciated it a lot. It's one of those movies where you watch it once, and if you didn't get it that well, try and rewatch it again.
Yeah, in which case, if you remember correctly, when you first got done, first about to watch it, I went, this movie is better on rewatches. It's just hard to rewatch it because of how long it is. Yeah. You have to sit through it the first time, but on the second watch, it's so much better.
However, this movie is very much of a complex piece.
Yes.
However, if we wanted to spend time by just say the acting and the cinematography and all that stuff, one, I would say it is one of the best shot movies I've ever seen.
Yes.
It is the most beautiful one one of the most beautiful ones I've ever seen. And the acting, it is sublime and superb. The main actor that plays our titular Lawrence looks just like him.
Yeah, spitting image.
A perfectly spitting image. I believe his name was Peter Toole.
Something like that,
yeah. And I don't know if he actually won Best Actor for that, actually.
He might have? I know for sure Lawrence of Arabia is kicking around the Academy Awards.
They probably won a lot anyway. But yeah, this was around the time when the epic movie genre was at its peak.
Yep.
We will never see that again, though, because good lord, audiences don't have the attention span for that unless it's for a Marvel movie.
Apparently.
But yeah, there's a lot of appreciation for Lawrence of Arabia. I will admit there is some things I might have issues with historical-wise, but I can tell what kind of narrative...
Yeah, because this is based off his book, not off the true story.
But I will say, though, just doing it on, primary sources from the actual person, you can use that, but be wary of the embellishments, especially since he was British, and they love to embellish their stuff to make themselves look good, so...
Reference the Victorians.
Reference the Victorians. Yep. So yeah, Lawrence of Arabia. Definitely check this one out. We'll talk more about it in the spoilers. Alright. Now we have ourselves coming up here, 2 picks that are on holiday-related ones. They're actually named, the movies that they're inspired by are actually named right after them. The first one's special for me, but it is so flawed. But I still love it anyway. I watch it every Halloween. It's the original Halloween with John Carpenter writing it. So
second John Carpenter film?
Yep, so the second one. I will always say it's not the best. It's definitely not the best. There's only 2 things really that I would say I appreciate the movie of. I love Donald Pleasance, the man that plays the Doctor in this movie. I love his nuanced performance, and I enjoyed the direction on how they handled our main serial killer, Flash, or whatever you want to call him, Michael Myers. I loved how they used him in the original movie. The rest of them can go suck off because they're awful and they miss the point on what the original intent of Michael was. However, everybody else in this movie, they ranged from I can see this is a really low budget movie and whatnot, to some were just no, it's just not good. Mainly the teenage actors in it. Jamie Lee Curtis, she is more famous today and she is really she does do good stuff. Just this one was an early stuff in her career, and it's no, it's not good. Her acting is not the greatest, as well as the other ones. They're not the best as well. But that's really all I have to say. This was one of the first movies I've ever seen where I started to appreciate movies more, and I still watch Halloween on a regular basis around Halloween, and it's just that. You have anything to say, Bryce?
No, I think you nailed it here. I don't have much to say. it's like one of the beginning, not first slashers, but like
No.
one of the ones that really established the slasher film for what it is. And
Yeah, it was like one of the ones that really established it into the movie market, especially for the 1980s. Like this came out in 1977, so like this is when they started to get pumped out more and more, and then we started seeing more of the standard slasher killers like Freddy Krueger, what's his name, Jason Voorhees. It's like a lot of them. But
in which case,
either way.
what I really have to say here is that it's one of those slashers, and if you like slasher movies, you've almost certainly seen this movie. Like,
Yeah.
well, slashers is one of those very like.
It's a standard, but it holds up fairly
Yeah.
well compared to many other ones that you've seen. I mean, heck, me and Bryce watched a slasher movie from the 1980s, and it is god awful, but it's only remembered for the ending of it. Head, you might actually know about it, but if you don't, maybe one of these days I'll drop a name of it. I'm not going to do it here.
Anyways.
It's not perfect for it. Anyway, our next one, our other holiday-related movie, Groundhog Day.
Yes.
Anyway, yes, so this movie is super famous. This is probably the main one that really got Bill Murray onto the map.
Oh yeah.
This is like his most iconic scene. Heck,
Probably it's either this or Ghostbusters.
Yeah, but I would say Groundhog Day would probably be
I
the
personally
main
prefer
one.
this over Ghostbusters. Yeah.
I don't have a preference over either one. I like each movie for different reasons, but Groundhog Day is something very special.
Yeah. This is one of those movies that really established, not a trope, but like, there's been multiple movies since this movie that have had the idea of repeating
The same day.
over. This is the movie that is the benchmark for that.
Yeah.
This is the movie that, if you do that, you will be compared to this movie. And this is also the movie you talked about earlier, that you were like, oh, there's time travel. This isn't real time travel.
I had to say it a little bit, but like, yeah, like this is one of the most tightest scripts that I've ever seen in the movie. There's really not very much flaws into it, and it is like one of those heartfelt movies that like you will leave the movie feeling happy 90% of the time.
Yeah, and last two things is that this is very funny, and finally, there's actually surprisingly deep stuff in this, because this is like cherished kind of by a lot of religious groups. Because there is a surprising amount of religious philosophy that is repeated by so many different types of religions.
Yeah, if you want a simple, basic one, I mean, right here, Buddhism. That's how I have always seen this movie as. It is a pretty interesting one, but like I'll probably talk more about it in the spoiler section. But it's a very hard to explain kind of stuff if you're not familiar with it. So if you want to learn more about it, I would suggest looking up the movie and like say like looking up Groundhog Day and Buddhist symbolism, and like you'll get a bunch of different articles about it. This movie is very much beloved by many different Buddhist circles, and it's like, yeah, you'll understand why if you ever did some small research into it. It's pretty fascinating on how many religious groups try to find a certain type of meaning into it. However, the movie doesn't really have its own set of meaning. Like, you can derive this movie into whatever you want. It's just perfect. Like, and none of the original writers or people have ever come out and said, this is the definitive meaning behind the movie. It's just like, it's your own interpretation.
Yep.
So go with it. Go forth and conquer, my friend. Alright, so. Oh boy. This was the movie that Bryce had some of the quote based opinions about.
Oh, yes.
Alright, I'm not going to say anything because literally I really feel dead whenever I have to talk about this movie with Bryce, so. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Go ahead, Bryce.
I'm actually not going to say too much about this. This is a very good-looking movie. I'll give it that. Stanley Kubrick always makes absolutely fantastic-looking movies. My biggest problem with the movie, though, is that this is both made by Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick, and
Clash of Egos.
This feels like a Clash of Egos movie, where they were arguing relentlessly over how the story should go, and because of that, it feels like tug in one direction, tug in the other, tug in the other direction, tug in the other. And it just feels like for most of the story, they just cannot settle it with each other, and they just want to argue most of the time. But, with all that said, it does have a bunch of very iconic visuals. It does look very good. Despite what I say, it is a very iconic movie. My biggest problem is that story-wise, it's not very strong because of that. Also, I don't like the use of surrealism in this movie. I'm very critical of that kind of stuff. It is very much just kind of feels like it was someone being like, oh, I want to do it this way, and then, well, I 100% probably believe Kubrick pitched, I want to do it this way, and King was like, no, it has to be done this way. And then the two just couldn't settling and wound up being something dumb. And on top of that, the movie just kind of ends kind of goofily, in my opinion. So
Yeah. I have not much to say. Literally, whenever I talk about this movie with Bryce, I feel like I'm dead inside by the end of it. And it's like,
I'm trying to keep my points very short. So.
Yeah, I really can't really deduce on why I love this movie really at all. So I just thought I'll move on from this after that, so we can move on to the next one. So, moving on. Sorry I didn't get much on The Shining, but oh well.
I'm going to talk about it more in the spoilers, in which case it's mostly going to be about Chevy Duvall, so...
Yeah. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. It's our first Western movie. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Absolutely fantastic. In my opinion, the best Western of all time, and I love Westerns.
I haven't seen very much of Westerns, per se.
I was going to actually put more Westerns on this list, but I actually cut a lot.
Yeah, I can see that. However, I definitely...
Note though, there is going to be some more Westerns that make it when I revise this, so especially for that.
I might have some weird revisions of like adding in some certain genres, but who knows? I'll have to do that again someday. However, yes, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I have never seen this movie before whenever we first watched it, and whenever I was done with it, I was like, dang, there's a lot of there's a lot about this movie that you can appreciate for it. For me, I would say it is the soundtrack, because, good lord, the soundtrack is one, iconic, and number two, highly important.
Yes.
Because there's certain parts in the music that if you ever wanted to do some research into it, look into what they did with the music, and then you would think, this would not work in any movie, and it's like, no way in hell would anybody would ever like it, but yet this is possibly the most iconic soundtrack of all time, especially dating back in the 1960s. Like, this movie has stood the test of time.
Yes.
For not even just its own movie sake, but its soundtrack as well. The standard theme song that you would know from this movie, just by hearing the first little sound, like first couple of notes, you're like, oh, I know this song.
Yes.
Every Western has this in some way, shape, or form.
Special note though, I would only recommend this movie to someone who likes Westerns.
Yeah.
Because this movie very much relies off the person watching this movie understanding Westerns. You can't just go into this movie being like, I've never seen a Western before, but I'm going to watch this movie. You're not going to get as much enjoyment out of it if you haven't seen Westerns before. So I recommend some other Westerns. Go watch like High Noon or something. That's also another really good one.
The Searchers.
And The Searchers is another really good one. You also can watch some modern Westerns. That would also be really good.
Yeah.
So if you want to go watch a True Grit, for example, that's also another really good one.
Mm-hmm.
Go watch some Western movies, then come back and watch this. Don't just immediately jump into this movie.
Yeah, I can see that. However, yeah, I fairly enjoyed it, even though I'd never really seen that many Westerns. However, I have done historical research into the Westerns, and I will have a lot to say about The Good, the Bad, the Ugly as its own like historical piece, because I have my own interpretation of it whenever we get to the spoiler section.
Yes.
So, yeah, go check this one out. Alright, so this next one, believe it or not, Bryce, this next movie right here, it has fallen, not fallen, why did I say that? It has bumped up quite a lot in my personal rankings, even though it doesn't show it. It's on number 5, if you're keeping track.
Yes.
However, this has shot up quite significantly, and I would honestly about nearly say it is possibly my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, alright.
So yeah, we are actually going from a colored movie, a bunch of colored movies, into the black and white cinema. So yes, keep calling me a hipster, you weirdos. However, no, this is from a very iconic silent actor turned into a talkie, The Great Dictator, starring Charlie Chaplin.
Yes.
So, the less that can be said about this movie, the better, because this movie came out 1 year before the United States entered into World War II.
Yes.
And this is a spoof on Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party and regime.
Yes.
Heck, are we even allowed to say those 2 words before
Yeah.
they demonetized? Who cares? It doesn't matter anymore.
We're probably going to get like 3 views. We're not going to monetize.
Yeah, who cares? But anyway, yeah. A Charlie Chaplin movie, it's a comedy, of course, and they are just making fun of the overall status of Germany at the time, 1 year before we got into World War II, and about 5 years before we knew to the truly extent that they did.
So one thing that you should know about this movie is that we didn't know a lot about World War II when this movie was initially made, and some state stuff doesn't date well. It's not like it dates badly, it's just
there's like
some stuff that's like, ooh.
There's like one scene at the end of the movie that makes you think, oh, that did not age aged the
There's
best.
another scene, I'll talk about it in spoilers, that does
Yeah.
not age well either.
Yeah, well, yeah, but like if I had to think of one immediately, it was one at the towards the very end.
The one I'm thinking is in the very middle.
I can see that. All right, but yeah.
Yeah, there's some stuff that doesn't age well, but with that said, it is a very important message and is very strong movie. Yes, it's a comedy. It is funny, but I feel the message here is the most important thing about this movie.
Oh,
it
yeah.
is.
There's a lot that you can really get out of this movie, but however, it's the ending, not the one that I was saying like it didn't age the best. There's one part of the movie in the end that is like the best single monologue piece of all time. Most people have
It's probably the best monologue of all time.
Yes. And it was the one part where Charlie Chaplin had gotten kicked out of the United States for, so of course, great, good job guys, we haven't learned jack shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, check out The Great Dictator, especially compare it to compare this movie of like before we got involved with World War II and then after with a different movie.
Yes.
And it's like just a polar opposites and portrayal of it all. And it's like, yeah, definitely check this one out. Alright, so our next one is a interesting one. It is Leon the Professional, which I have to say immediately, Natalie Portman is in this. She's one of my favorite actresses, and this was the one that got her on the map. And she's a brilliant actress today, as she was as a young child in her teenage years.
So, we were talking earlier about great child acting. I feel this is the tip of the pyramid.
Yes.
Best child acting of all time.
Yeah, I don't really think this could ever be topped.
On top of that, I feel that this movie probably has some of the best casting of all time.
I can definitely see that as well.
In which case, I feel this also, along with that, has one of the best cast villains of all time.
Yes.
The villain in this movie is absolutely fantastic. I remember him saying one of his first lines in this movie, and you going, I love that line, and I just silently said, you have not seen the fraction of this yet.
Yeah, quite literally. So Gary Oldman.
No joke. 5 lines later, you went, holy cow.
Yeah, quite literally. So Gary Oldman is our main villain actor, and holy smokes, this is like the best.
He plays villains amazingly, and this is his best villain.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. This is like creme de la creme of like his best work.
Probably his best role.
Possibly, yeah. But like Gary Oldman is honestly like a great actor in his own right. However, this is the one where I would say like this is probably his best piece right here. He's like fully committed onto the role, and he.
Special note though, director's cut. Also, had to note that especially for Little Shop of Horrors as well.
Well, yeah, that's about right. I forgot about that. Yeah. But yeah, I don't have much else to say about Leon the Professional. I really would rather talk more about it on that spoiler section because there is a few scenes like I think they should be mentioned. However, overall, great movie.
Yes.
Very great. All right, so next one, our final animated piece of this entire venture, last one in Japan, Princess Mononoke. So a Ghibli movie. I have a lot of appreciation for Ghibli movies. I very much appreciate Hayao Miyazaki. I like how he portrays, I like how he writes female characters. I believe a lot of them are so very strong. He does a lot of movies with main female leads, so it's pretty interesting to see on like how much he really enjoys writing female characters. However, I really enjoy Princess Mononoke for a myriad of reasons. I think it's I believe it's his personal best one. It is one of the more tighter and more engaging stories. And if I had to think of a movie in which a lot of people usually say this, like, oh, this movie has the best beginning or this one has the best ending, nobody ever talks about the best middle. Princess Mononoke, in my opinion, has some of the best middle act scenes of all time. It is just phenomenal.
Yeah. I think this is not my favorite Ghibli film, but for the most part, like, Ghibli films are up there with some of the best animated films of all time.
Yes.
In my opinion, I actually put Ghibli way higher than Pixar, in my opinion.
That is very much of a hot take, in which I would never touch that with a 10-foot pole, even though I might even agree with you, because, like, there's a lot of parts about Ghibli movies, and, like, there's some, like, Pixar is very diverse as well. However, in what I want to look for in a Ghibli movie is like this. A lot of Ghibli movies usually have the standard stuff that you would see. However, the one that I always appreciate the most is its nature.
Yeah.
I love nature to death. It is like something that I always want to fall back on. And the portrayal of nature in Ghibli movies is phenomenal. And Princess Mononoke is, in one of my personal opinion, some of the best pieces of like nature shots.
Yeah, so what I would say is animation really has you understand like the care in a movie, because animation you have to put in every single little bit, and Ghibli does this the best. And if you're capable of doing that art form the best, then you automatically are surpassing other people, in which case I don't feel Pixar does that nearly as well. Hence why I say Ghibli is better than Pixar. And I wouldn't say this is the best Ghibli movie, but presumably by you having this on your list, you might be saying that as that is.
I would personally say, like, it is, like, in my opinion, like, say, the best personally made movie of Ghibli. This is probably the one I would say. In terms of, like, one that I connect to the most, it wouldn't be the one.
Yeah.
There's other ones in which me and Bryce have seen before. We will have a special episode in the future where we will have that discussion.
So, what I would ultimately say, I said this earlier about Throne of Blood, everyone should at least watch one Ghibli movie.
Yes.
And my also biggest recommendation, the biggest flaw I have against Princess Mononoke is that I don't care about the ending. I feel they mistreat a couple of things, but for the most part, everything up till then is extremely strong.
Yes. Okay, I can see that. But yeah, it's like usually, but whenever you say a Ghibli movie, we should actually probably mention see a Miyazaki movie, because there is other Ghibli directors.
Yes.
So our next movie here, so we mentioned earlier in which like compare Great Dictator from before World War II, and then compare a movie that was made of after World War II. This was probably the one that we'd be talking about the most. Schindler's List.
Yes.
Alright, so oh boy, where do you start with Schindler's List?
If this movie is one of the few that I can probably say has the near certification of a guarantee you will cry in it.
Yeah, I can see that.
This is one of the few, because if you were to rank movies of saddest movie of all time, I would probably say this tops the list.
Yeah, I can see that.
This is not only... So this movie is focusing around World War II, so this is a history piece.
Yes.
And the main director for this, which happened to be Spielberg,
Yes.
they made this movie as a tribute. They did not make this movie to like make money or anything like this. Matter of fact, most of the profits of this movie went over to victims. And yes, and this movie is meant to be a tribute and a solidification of we should not forget that this happened. To learn from our mistakes and to progress. And because of this, in my opinion, it is the most important movie of all time and should be seen by everyone.
Yes.
This is one of the like few movies, like we're recommending all of these movies, but this is one of the few where I say you should watch this movie, period. You don't have to watch it multiple times. I've seen this movie multiple times in my life. You should watch it at least once.
Yes. This is one of those movies in which, like, as a human being, you should always... There's certain movies that you always need to see. Schindler's List is probably number one for me, is like, you have to see this movie
Yes.
as a person in order to create amount of empathy, in which there's still people to this day that are affected by the Holocaust in World War II.
Absolutely.
And it's just like a catastrophic event that affected everybody in some certain way. I mean, if you don't have a family member that was a part of the Holocaust, though, you might have had a family member that was involved in World War II in some way, and it just affected everybody. I mean, heck, look at Russia, for example. They would have like maybe one or two family members that were in the war and they died, or family members that were just caught in the crossfire. But this is...
Everyone was affected by World War II, and this movie was made as a tribute for that, not as something to glorify it, but to understand it.
Yep. It does not hold back. It is something
it is
that...
not hold back.
Yeah, nope. And this is definitely one of those movies that everybody should see, at least once.
Yes.
Alright, so from that somber note, we can finally try to cheer some things up here, because now we're going to a director in which me and Bryce have always said is another major influence on us, especially Young Frankenstein.
Absolutely.
Created by Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks, in my opinion, one of the... This is a personal take. This is not speaking for the wider audience. One of my personal favorite comedy directors of all time.
Oh yeah, I would honestly not even dispute that at all. Like, Mel Brooks is so iconic. Like, he's got so many different comedy movies out there, and I mean, heck, right now I've heard there's going to be a spoof of one of his that is more kid friendly.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll talk about it in the spoiler section, but really is no mention. But it's like, I believe it's more of a testament on like how iconic and more timely his movies are, in which his comedy movies are just top notch. And this is another one with Gene Wilder.
Yeah, this is probably his best one. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite of his best one, but yeah, I absolutely can understand if there was a poll taken of best Mel Brooks movie of all time. I would not be remotely surprised. Matter of fact, I would bet on this being placed as the best one.
Yeah, I can see that. For me, it's like this. Like, Young Frankenstein is like a movie that I would see, at least hopefully around the Halloween type of season. However, Bryce watches it around Christmas time, oddly enough.
Yep.
His family watches a bunch of Mel Brooks movies around the holiday season.
Yep.
So, yeah, we watch these movies a bunch, at least in one way or another. I love Young Frankenstein. Mel Brooks is just a comedic genius. I love Gene Wilder's performance. He's also a comedic genius. He's very much of an influence on my whole understanding of how to make people laugh. So yeah, please watch Young Frankenstein.
Absolutely.
Alright, so next one. It's a fun movie that I have seen in the theater when it first came out, and holy smokes, whenever I left, I just said, this movie is just one word, fun. Fun. It's just fun. And it's not a perfect movie, well, it could be a perfect movie for you, however, in terms of just his look, it's perfect. Mad Max Fury Road.
So this movie was designed in a very interesting way that I feel is just testaments how great this movie was. Why did you do that?
I don't know why, I was just moving my foot. Okay, whatever.
Okay, let's hope that it didn't
let's
cut out there. Yeah,
let's
so we start.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah.
3, 2, 1. Alright, so our next movie right here is just one word. Fun. Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes, I think this is absolutely superb movie. I have to talk about how this movie was made for a few parts. Number one, this movie was storyboarded before written, which I think is absolutely insane because this movie focuses so heavily on action that they went, we don't need to write the dialogue yet. We need to write how these scenes look before we even focus on that. And because of that, this movie has functionally no dialogue whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that more movies should do. Because it's brilliant. It does that so well. And on top of that, so many of the people who made this movie absolutely hated the production of it. Famously, the lead actor, he was considering leaving this movie midway through making it until he saw the final cut and went, I absolutely hated this movie, but that was worth it. This movie is absolutely phenomenal. It is one of the most action-packed, adrenaline-fueled, unstoppable movies ever made.
Honestly,
on top of that, you don't need to watch the others. This is technically a sequel.
Quite honestly, you shouldn't even see the others because it was made by a bastard. Go fuck yourself. You know who you are.
But yeah, like this is absolutely amazing. The world building it manages to do while also not even remotely relenting on how adrenaline fueled this movie is absolutely phenomenal. And on top of that, it does all of this whilst being one of the most different movies I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah. Literally just said anything, like literally just took the words out of my mouth. This is something that you should definitely check out. Even still, get a group of friends to watch this movie.
100%, yeah.
Honestly, like even if you wanted to watch this as like a drunken people's movie, it's probably just perfect for that.
Yeah, if you want to sit down and focus solely on watching this movie, it works. Want to watch this in the background, it works. Want to get some friends together and talk about it, it works. This movie can be watched under any circumstance and be amazing.
Yep. Not much else to say. Go check out Mad Max Fury Road. Avoid the other ones. Fuck you, by the way, again.
Yeah.
Anyway. Alright, so next up is our first Coen Brothers movie, oddly enough. However, I personally enjoy it. Bryce does not seem to nearly as much.
I only have one small problem with it.
Yeah, but...
You might as well say that.
Yeah. No Country for Old Men.
Yes.
So yes.
I think this is an absolutely amazing cat and mouse film.
Yes.
It is absolutely superb at doing that. On top of that, it has one of the most fascinating villains of all time.
Oh, yeah.
The villain is so fascinating in this movie. Not that in the interest of you think the actual character is fascinating, more of the performance is fascinating.
Oh, yeah. It always keeps you second guessing.
Yeah, it's so interesting that it is capable of being, and on top of that, it managed to chain itself very well with some interesting stakes and standards, a very interesting cat and mouse, play here, play there, as it is being able to do all of this, and I feel in a very realistic standard of being able to do so many of these particular things in such an interesting manner. My only problem with it is
the ending.
Yeah,
which you always mention.
Ending is very long, and I feel it should have been cut about 20 or so minutes earlier. I can understand what they were trying to do. I just feel it should have been shortened, because I feel it was very possible for them to do that. It just kind of winds up devolving into philosophical talk by the end of it, which I don't have a necessary problem with. I just don't like how long they did it for. And I have the same problem with Ben-Hur. They did the exact same thing in Ben-Hur.
However, they did their Ben-Hur's reasoning was a little bit different than the countries, though.
Yeah, they have different things, but I wanted to give a comparison there.
Yeah,
where I think they're absolutely fantastic movies. This is just the ending's the problem.
Yeah.
Like, I would think this is an absolutely fantastic movie. The only problem is you have to consider I have a problem at the end. But that's about it. If you want a great cat and mouse movie, it does this phenomenally. Great stakes, great chaining, and does this on very realistic ground.
Okay. I'll talk more about it in the spoiler section. I still think, No Country for Old Men probably won't really move around in my list for me. I still think this movie is pretty solid in, just watching on its own. However, whenever I like to sit down and think about the movie for a bit, there's a little bit more interesting subtext about it that I enjoy about it. And this is a movie that is based upon a book, again, and it's based off of, the authors, one of the most famous authors out there, Cormac McCarthy. A lot of people love his bodies of work. I've only read, a couple of his books, and yeah, they're great. So, No Country for Old Men is probably one of the most best adapted pieces from his work. However, I'll talk more about that sometime later. But let's move on to Bryce's number 2. Man, this is going by so much faster than the original. Oh, sorry. Anyway, yeah. Next one, Amadeus. Another fairly long movie.
Yes. And
director's cut.
If we're talking about what we need to describe movies as short as possible, this is a spectacle.
Yeah, it's quite literally a spectacle. Possibly the most accurate performance of Amadeus Mozart, the composer. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Possibly the most accurate portrayal of the whole entire, really, it's just a freaking character at this point.
Yeah.
Of him of all time. It was from just down to the mannerisms to the laugh, it is just sublime. One of the best villains, or actually compelling villains of all time, in which you understand everything about him, just from the sequence of him talking about his childhood and then all the way to the end. And it's so interesting.
One thing I find very interesting about this movie is that it blends the idea of protagonist and antagonist very beautifully. Because there is no wrong party, kind of. You follow someone and they're definitely making wrong choices, but you completely understand every step of the way, being yep. Well, the other person you would probably qualify as the protagonist. They're also making very bad choices. They're getting things wrong all the step of the way, and it's this is not only is this a very different telling, a very different story. It does this in such a grandiose way. You can't help but be impressed while watching this movie.
Yep. Characters are great, and heck, just the overall set design of everything, it is
probably some of the best stage design I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
Not only this movie, not historically accurate, because they didn't base this off history at all.
However, that's the exterior stuff, it is more immersive than anything. Whenever I mentioned the Lighthouse being a very good immersive piece, Amadeus is up there as well.
Yes, in which case, the costuming, the set design, they do so many things spectacularly. Just have it be noted, they did not base this movie off history, they based this movie off an account from history, which was not accurate.
Yeah. However, this was also still a play, though, as well.
Yes, so the train, once again, a weird chain of events where this movie based off a play, based off a book, based off inaccurate recollections of history.
Yeah. Oh, man. But yeah, please, just go ahead and see it. It is definitely a very compelling piece. Alright, let's fix that up. Alright, so, we're to our number 1. This has gone by a lot faster than originally. What do you know? Sorry, everyone.
It looks like when you put a timer on things go a lot quicker. No joke, there was some of these we spent 30 minutes talking about.
Yeah, if you want to know, this was before we get to our number 1, so this is some background here. We originally filmed episode 1 way back in February.
We started at 8 a.m. and we wrapped at 2 p.m.
Yep. So, yeah, and then I had it on my old laptop. which that's what we used in order to record
We also did
this.
this in January, so it was effing freezing.
Yeah, and it was in a little shack down by the street where I lived, and like, I was originally trying to trim it down to however long, and good lord, and then my computer started to mess up, so I took it to a shop, and they said, oh yeah, we'll clean wipe it. Didn't process on what they meant by clean wipe, because now all those videos are gone, so now we have to remake some stuff.
In which case, we were only remaking 3 videos.
I think we were remaking a few more though. Yeah, I'll double check it.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, we'll double check. Anyway, yeah. So that's all back.
Number 1.
Yeah.
So just to preface here, neither of these number 1s are actual number 1s. This is just time period. Yours was just what you wanted to pick at the time, while mine was I picked for a meme. So just a little bit of a preface here. These are not our actual number 1 picks.
What do you even call your number 1 a meme?
Yes, it was absolutely a meme.
Okay, whatever.
I'll preface what that means later. It's not a meme as in it's a bad movie. It was a meme in our group.
Not like that. But yeah, it was between us.
I guess it's more of a running gag, I guess.
Yeah, that would make more sense. Oh yeah. Number 1 is Birdman.
Yes.
So, very interesting stuff. They pretty much made this entire movie make it seem like it was all done in one giant take.
Yes.
Which, very impressive.
Very impressive cinematography.
Yeah, and very well done editing as well, in order to make sure this whole thing flowed very, very well. So, literally, just that's mostly like the best thing about this movie to me is like that entire cinematography and just a whole one-shot take. Really well done.
Yeah. It's very obliterant, impressive take on cinematography and editing. Because there's very good editing and cinematography across all movies, but this one tries to be a little bit better, but wants to advertise how good it is. So, like, even if you're someone who is like, oh, I'm not that, I don't really understand the cinematography and editing of movies yet, this is one of those movies that is, like, training wheels, I guess, to be like, here's how you can begin to understand how great this stuff can be, because it will very much show those stuff to you with, like, great transitions and being able to, like, stitch stuff together. That, like, shows that stuff to you, and as long as you have that in your mind, being like, okay, I know that this stuff has great editing, and you sit down and look through this, you can really begin to understand all of that stuff going together. So, this is a great movie for someone who's like, okay, I don't understand this kind of stuff. I would recommend this movie to be like, okay, here's a great starting position to begin to understand that.
Yeah.
Other than that, has a nice story, nicely portrayed, has a very interesting ending.
Yes.
Other than that, I don't really have much more to say.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, I feel the most notable part about this movie is the editing and cinematography.
Yeah, I can see that. Alright, so, next one. So, this was, of course...
Yep, the final movie that we'll be talking about.
Yep. So this was, like, eventually, like, 5 years ago was when me and Bryce first met.
Yes.
Literally, it has been around nearly about 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think so.
So we were all just like thinking about like movies of like we all like. This was Bryce's number 1 movie right here, and earlier I mentioned The Green Mile, in which there was another movie that was somewhat connected to it, but they were only connected by like director and original source material.
I might as well give a little bit of a preamble about this. Before I got into movies, this was my favorite, because this is just one of those movies that I saw when I was very young, and I was like, this is just a really good movie, but I wouldn't watch a lot of movies back then. And so this was my favorite movie of all time, running for a very long time, and I just never wanted to replace my movie. Like, even when I began getting into movies, I was like, I don't want to replace my favorite movie of all time. So I just kind of hung on to it, even though I didn't even think at the time it was my favorite movie. I just was like, I just want to hang on to it because it's been my favorite movie since I was a kid. And I was like, eventually, at one point, I wound up talking to Tanner here, and he was like, oh yeah, I hadn't seen that movie, and this is one of those movies that I felt everyone had seen. And I was just absolutely blown away, and then at one point he told me he had seen another movie, and I was like, how the F have you seen that movie, but not this one?
This was just the timing of it. It was like, those 2 movies are always on television, on syndication, and so I've seen The Green Mile first, and while this one, I'll go ahead and just mention it, Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
So, a lot of interesting things to talk about. So, yeah. I guess to start off with, I really love the casting in this movie. I enjoy probably the very biggest acting roles that was given for Morgan Freeman. He's not the main character per se. He's
a side character, secondary.
Yeah, but this was the main... Yeah, he's a supportive character, and this is probably the main one that got him on the map.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember his other name. Was it...
I remember his character's interesting. Dufresne. I don't remember the actor's name.
Oh.
I don't know why, but I always remember
he's
from
really
Sucker Proxy. That's not a good reference.
By the way, a lot of the acting in this movie is super sublime. The original source material, as what Bryce has told me, is not very long. It's a very
it's
short
very
story.
short, and I don't like it.
Yeah. But however, the addition that they add into it shows that there's a lot of care, interest into seeing how much they can add on to this movie without having to really change so much of the original story. But overall, I thought this was a very good movie. And when Bryce asked me at the very end of like, how do I feel about this movie being in the #1 coveted spot of IMDb top 200?
Yes. Because IMDb, in case you don't know, movie rating site, you rate something on 0 to 10, and they sort their movies by top 250, in which case, based on user rating, because you can sort something out of 10, you want to getting these little decimal points. This movie has the highest position on IMDb of its ratings, highest one of all time.
Yeah. And, well, I thought about it for a second, and I thought, makes sense. I mean, whenever I understand the whole reason of why it's up there so high is, like, a lot of people seen it on television. The movie didn't make very much money in the theaters. However, it was bought heavily on home video. It was seen a lot on television because it was so cheap. And just over time, it gained a large following, and I just thought, yeah, I can see why people love this movie a lot and why it could be their favorite movie of all time.
Yes.
It's not my personal favorite. It would never be on my top 20, but I still say it is one of the most sublime pieces of filmmaking that I've seen coming out from the 90s, and really, that's all I have for it. It's like, yeah, it's really sublime.
Yeah. But yeah, well, I was going to wind up replacing this movie, but then we were talking about doing top 20s for so long, I decided I'm going to keep this on my list until Tanner here actually sees it, and now that you've seen it, I'm finally replacing my #1 movie, so I wound up deciding on that, but we're going to talk about that in a later episode, because next episode we're going to be talking about some spoiler stuff, and then we'll be doing some other things. Should I just go ahead and say what we're going to be doing, or just...
you know what, why not? Go ahead.
Yeah, so currently our plan is that we, as of this episode, we'll be talking about non-spoiler stuff. Next episode, we've already mentioned this a whole time, we're going to be giving spoiler stuff, so in the event that you want to hear what we think about a movie very much particular things to look out for, then you can tune in for that. If you don't care about the spoilers of the movie, I don't think there's too many movies that are ruined by being spoilers, like we don't have any too many twist movies or anything like that.
No.
So nothing to really worry about with like how heavily spoiled the movie is, but just in case you're like, I want us to have no spoilers in the movie, absolutely none, and don't watch that. But if you've seen all of the movies on this list, or if you've seen a couple of them, you can jump around in the video and listen out for those. Or if you're just like, I don't effing care, and you want to go through and listen for that. After that, we'll be doing an award ceremony. In which case we'll be having, I believe we have 20 or so categories.
Yes.
In which case we will be talking about nominations, in which case, depending on what movies we nominate there, depending on what you highly praise in a movie, you can really get a gauge of what we feel are some of the strongest movies in those categories are. And then finally, after that, we will be, I'm wanting to pitch the rework, in which case, we have not revealed what the new top 20s are. I have been slowly working on mine for some time. I'm not sure how much you've been working on yours.
It's been an on and off again project.
That makes sense.
I've been like moving out, and I'm officially moved in, so I can finally devote more time into it.
Yeah, in which case, my hope there is that we will pitch these movies to each other and get our opinions, whether we've seen them or not, and try to sell each other on these movies in a non-spoilery fashion. Hopefully, as the series goes on, we'll be reviewing some of those movies. And then finally, we haven't planned much more further ahead, but the last one that I believe we need to refilm is we are going to need to do, I decided to take all the movies from our top 20s, his top 20 and my top 20, and I plugged them into an algorithm, and the algorithm, doing that, recommended one movie for each of us.
Yes.
In which case we will talk about those. So his top 20, plugged it in, got a movie, took my top 20, took it in, got a movie, and we watched both of those, and we were reviewing them, and seeing how good the algorithm actually predicted our movies. So,
not much else to really say. We got it all figured out. So thank you all so much for watching. Comparatively of like the 6-hour raw footage originally, hopefully this is almost close to 2 hours. It ain't gonna be nearly as bad.
Yeah, I believe it's about 2 hours now.
Alright, so thank you all for watching. And Bryce, screw you.
Beat you to it!